welcome back. Now, I want to talk now about the perimenopause. It's something that women can struggle with in the run-up to the menopause. The problem is that not many people know about it and the symptoms can be confusing. It's been back in the headlines, of course, since the disappearance of Nicola Bulley. So I'm joined now by Catherine Warrilow and Dr Clare Spencer, who is a menopause specialist. Because, Catherine, you're currently going through this, aren't you? You've been going through the perimenopause and it's been very confusing for you. Can you tell us when you noticed things started to change?
Yeah, that's right. I just didn't feel my normal kind of sprightly self. Pride myself on having lots of energy and being a busy person, juggling kind of the very normal things that women my age do. But something wasn't quite right. It was also, though, off the back of homeschooling 2 kids. I had COVID, I was a bit poorly with that. I was coming out of quite a stressful job. So I really just put my symptoms down to normal life.
Yeah.
But I had the classic brain fog, lack of focus, trouble with memory recall. And it was just making me feel overwhelmed, and just not my normal happy self.
Yeah, because I mean, you're in your early 40s, aren't you? So at this point, you're probably not thinking this is anything to do with the menopause.
No, I think obviously there's been a huge amount of media coverage for the menopause over the last few years, and the understanding of what perimenopause is has improved massively, which is great. I only really went to my GP because I had 2 friends who were perimenopausal, had started on HRT and seen a huge improvement in similar symptoms. But as far as I was concerned, it could be any number of lifestyle factors,
and
really.
can I ask you, were your periods the same or had they changed at all in all of this?
No, nothing had changed. It was really the cognitive side of things that I was struggling with. I didn't have any other physical symptoms, which is another reason why it wasn't at the top of my self-diagnosis list, I suppose.
And how bad did it get for you then in terms of dealing with all this? You know, you're talking about there about you have a high-pressure job and you're juggling looking after kids and your family and everything else, and then getting these memory blocks and stuff. How bad was that for you?
I felt I couldn't cope with the stress of very small, insignificant things, silly things, really. Losing something, breaking something, just traffic, like things that normally are maybe annoying, but all these tiny things just seemed to compound in a really big way that wasn't reflective of kind of how I should be feeling. I'm an ideas person, I'm a creative person in my job. I love coming up with kind of big ideas, and I couldn't channel that into anything useful. So I felt like my superpowers for me as a person, as a mum, as a leader, as a colleague, weren't there. And I found that it just made me sad.
Yeah, because that would really knock your confidence as well.
Yeah.
So how were you coping with it before you knew what it was?
So I'm a very open person to all sorts of different therapies, and I've got a great coach, and I tried Reiki and all sorts of different homeopathic remedies. Every supplement you could kind of possibly has ever been mentioned in conjunction with the perimenopause. But nothing changed after that kind of coming out of COVID. The kids were back in school, life was a bit more normal. I moved into an incredible job with an incredible boss, very flexible, very supportive, very different to the role I was in before. But I still had this kind of mental block.
Yeah, and that must have been really frustrating for you if you were doing all this to try and get on with your life. And am I right in thinking on a night you were finding that what was helping was a glass of wine?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm happy to kind of admit that, and I think, unfortunately, lots of women my age find themselves in a similar situation, because it just takes away that kind of, that pressure of, why am I standing in this room? What was I about to do?
Yeah.
I know, I'll go to the kitchen, I'll sit down, I'll have a glass of wine, calm down, and then I will tackle my daily life, as in the evening. So, yeah, I think for lots of women, including myself, a glass of wine in the evening is definitely something that took the edge off that that pressure that I was feeling.
And then the problem is, then you have a few more, don't you? Because you think, well, now I'm relaxed, I'm gonna, and then that can lead to all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So since finding out it's perimenopause, what have you had in terms of treatment, and how has that changed your life?
So I'm lucky that I've got an incredible female GP who's very accessible, very supportive, has worked with me to kind of educate me on what perimenopause is and give me options. So I started on a HRT patch, and she was very kind of like, it doesn't matter if it's not the perimenopause. If you don't feel your normal self, and only you know what that feels like, if it's being caused by a hormonal imbalance, then let's see if HRT helps. And if it does, fantastic. And luckily for me, it has done. So I'm kind of one of the fortunate cases where great GP asked for help quite early, and it has really helped my symptoms hugely. I feel much more like the old me.
Good. So, Doctor, can you explain then what is perimenopause?
No, absolutely. And it's great to hear, Catherine, that you got help so quickly, because many women don't come forward. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to think of the menopause as a transition, and the perimenopause is the beginning of that transition. So for many women, it can start commonly in their mid, even early 40s, but even younger for a few women. So in the perimenopause, it's when your hormone estrogen starts to fluctuate more erratically and ultimately drop. And that can trigger changes to your periods, your fertility decreases as you release fewer eggs, but most importantly, that's when symptoms of the menopause transition or of the menopause can really start, and they can really start to creep in slowly. Because the menopause is really only a point in time. So that's when you can look back and say, oh, I haven't had a period for the last 12 months. And then immediately you're in the post-menopause, which with increasing life expectancy for women can be 30 to 40% the rest of your whole life. So I think the important thing is that symptoms can start in the perimenopause, as they did for Catherine, and then they can really linger for a long period of time into the post-menopause.
And as you say, people might think if they're still having periods or whatever that it's not the menopause, but as you're saying, it can be the start of it. So what can you do then if you think this might be you?
Yeah, so I think arm yourself with knowledge. It's incredibly important to understand what the whole range of symptoms are, because there are so many of them. You know, many symptom trackers will have 40 symptoms or so. So find out what the symptoms are. Sort of have confidence in yourself. If you're not feeling yourself, if you're not feeling right, then go and ask for help. And then once you've armed yourself with knowledge, you know, speak to your GP and start the ball rolling and getting the right treatment. There's lots of good information out there on menopause symptoms, which is great now.
Some people might be worried about HRT because, you know, it's been in the news loads, hasn't it? But what would you say to people who might think, oh, I'm not sure about it, because are there other risks?
Yeah, so look, HRT is the most effective way of managing symptoms. It's not for everybody, and it's really every single person, every single woman's own choice as to how she's going to manage symptoms, because that transition will be different for everybody. But HRT is a lot safer than I think we used to think, and certainly there's still some anxiety, I think, lingering about HRT. But it's much safer now than it used to be. Now we can give estrogen through the skin, we can give body-identical hormones that are the same biochemically as our hormones, that are much less risky. For most women, the benefits of HRT will vastly outweigh any small risks.
Catherine, I can see you nodding along.
I mean, I think the difficulty with perimenopause or any stage of the menopause is it does mimic so many other things in life, just a general stress or anxiety, demanding job, busy life, a little bit of low mood. But I think because I've had such a positive experience with my GP and the treatment I've received, I just think any woman, regardless of age, who doesn't feel great, doesn't feel like she does normally, go and see your GP, because even if it isn't the menopause or perimenopause, it doesn't matter if you don't feel yourself. go
really good advice.
go and find out what it might be.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming in to talk about it, because, you know, it might prompt some people today
Hopefully
to go and get
so,
the help
yeah.
they might need.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. Loads more still to come on the show. We'll see you after the break.